Welcome back. My name is Danielle Thornton. I'm an anxiety and OCD recovery coach. And today we're going to talk about the dating stages of relationships when you struggle with relationship anxiety or relationship OCD. So this can look really different for different people. Some people can meet somebody and have a great time and start dating and not really experience any anxiety or intrusive thoughts around that until the later stages of the process, where things start to get a little bit more serious or people start to talk about more of a commitment. And so it can show up that way. Other people, and usually this is people who have had OCD for a long time, who are aware of their relationship OCD or anxiety, this can show up before they even start dating, especially if you are online dating and trying to make decisions about who to talk to and going through a lot of profiles. That can be pretty triggering for somebody with relationship anxiety or relationship OCD. So it looks very different. There's no right or wrong. It could be right away or it could be later in the dating process. But either way, what I want to talk about today is 5 different OCD compulsions that if you just experience relationship anxiety, you're going to still be able to relate to. But if you have OCD, these are 5 compulsions that you really want to be aware of, and we'll talk about how to navigate these if they are showing up for you. The first one is avoidance. And this is an interesting one because this one can show up a lot for people and they don't even know it. I was one of those people who had no clue I had relationship OCD. I had no clue that anxiety or fear was really something in my life for most of my 20s and 30s. But I did avoid getting into relationships for about 18 years, if you want to really look at the big picture. So avoidance is a big compulsion, and it's something that we do when we are experiencing fear. When something is uncertain or scary, we tend to just avoid it. It's a really easy thing to do. But avoidance can show up in other ways. If you're dating and you find yourself avoiding, getting dressed up because you don't want that person to like you too much. You might find yourself avoiding going to places that you'd really enjoy because there's a fear of the relationship progressing. You might avoid kissing or being physically affectionate with somebody. Avoidance can definitely show up in a lot of ways. And this is a compulsion that's actually holding you back in the relationship, and it's actually making the anxiety worse. So whenever you find yourself avoiding anything because of the fear of, getting into the relationship or getting hurt or whatever that fear is, it's different for everybody. You want to make sure that you don't avoid. You take those steps forward anyway, even though it's uncomfortable. I know it's hard, but you can definitely do it. And it's going to help your anxiety and OCD in the long run. The next one is checking. So this one, you might find yourself checking your level of attraction or checking your feelings for that person. Again, this looks different for everybody. Some you're going to be able to relate to some of this and not others. But you might find yourself checking, if you're attracted to your partner. Some people find themselves checking certain physical features of their partner to see if they are attracted enough to them. Other people find themselves checking, how do I feel about this person? Am I excited? You might find yourself kissing the person and checking how you feel, or noticing that you don't feel those fireworks. And so then that creates more anxiety and more checking and less of those positive feelings around that experience. You might also be checking compatibility a little bit more than normal. Now, this is a tricky one because when we're dating, we are essentially looking to see if this person is compatible with us. So there's a lot of gray area here. But what you want to do is focus on being present in the moment with that person, enjoying your time with them. And when you notice something that may or may not be compatible, then you just put it in the back of your mind. You continue to get to know them and you continue to see if that's actually something that is truly an inconsistency or not, because it does take time to get to know those things. You know that it's anxiety or OCD when you find yourself being triggered by something and then making a rash decision immediately to walk away because you feel like something might not be a good fit. Make sure that you give it time to see if that warning bell that actually went off in your head is truly a warning bell, or was it just a false alarm? Because with anxiety and OCD, we have a lot of false alarms. So my advice to you is to, first of all, make sure that you're not checking, or when you catch yourself doing it, choose to be in the present moment, and then give it plenty of time to get to know that person and see if the alarm bells that anxiety and OCD are giving you are actually true or not, because a lot of times they are not. That doesn't always mean that there aren't incompatibilities as you're dating, because again, you're not going to like and be compatible with every single person that you date. That's essentially why we're dating, right? But you want to give it enough time to see if these things are actually true incompatibilities, or is it just OCD or fear trying to give you a reason to walk away when it's not necessarily the right thing to do yet. The next one is comparing. And this is really common with relationship OCD, where you might compare this person to maybe your ex, or you're comparing them to maybe another relationship that your friend has. Okay. You might find your brain going to, is this person as romantic as my friend's partner? Or this person isn't quite as spontaneous and fun as my ex. When you find yourself comparing, you just want to notice it as a compulsion, as something that isn't really healthy or effective in the moment, and choose to move forward anyway. Because every partner is going to be very different. Every partner is going to have their pros and cons. And it's more about the big picture, right? Not these one little things that you really wanted that they might not have, but the big picture. How do you feel around them? Do you see a future with them? Looking at the values that you both have, and do those line up, instead of really nitpicking one thing here and there. And next is hypervigilance. And essentially with OCD, you're hypervigilant of everything, but a lot of people can be very hypervigilant of red flags or even cheating, right? Especially if you've had those experiences in your past, if you've been cheated on, if you've had experiences where you've been mistreated before, you might be more hyper vigilant of these types of things and really be hyper focused on looking for those. And so when you catch yourself doing this, I want you to remember that there is a difference between a red flag and a yellow flag. This is something I learned early on, right? A red flag would be someone has been abusive in their past, or they've been unfaithful in all of their relationships, or they're unable to commit to relationships, or they have a temper. Those things are red flags. A lot of other things might be yellow flags, if anything. And it doesn't mean that even when you see a red flag, there are some red flags that are worth walking away right away, right? But if you struggle with relationship OCD, I think it's important to notice when you see a red flag, to give it time and get to know that person, and make sure that what you're seeing is really a red flag and not just a yellow flag or something that you completely misinterpreted in that person. Okay. Because it does take time. Anxiety and OCD will give you things that feel like red flags when they're really not. The other thing you can do here is use trusted friends to talk to about this, especially the ones that understand your pattern of maybe running away from relationships too soon, or finding things wrong in relationships when they're really not there. Okay. If you have friends that are aware of that pattern within you, they can help you figure out when you do have a concern about a relationship, whether it is a true concern or not. Now, if you're younger, you're 18, 20, this can be a little bit more difficult because a lot of your friends kind of lack the relationship experience. Whereas for myself, this has been really helpful. I'm in my 40s and my friends know my history of struggling with fear in relationships. And that in the past, I have tended to see something as a red flag and run away too quickly, when in reality, I needed to give it a little bit more time to see if it was truly a red flag or not. So if you don't have friends, if you're not in that situation where somebody kind of understands your fears and your patterns, you can also go to a specialist like myself or a therapist that understands relationship OCD, because they're really going to be able to understand your pattern and help you understand where to push through some of that hypervigilance and where maybe that is a good decision for you to move on to the next person. And lastly is ruminating. This is so common, any form of OCD and anxiety. Rumination is a really tough one to combat. And this means just that you're in your head, you're overanalyzing, and you're thinking about that particular worry pretty consistently. And I'm going to put a card up top where you can check out my video on how to stop ruminating. There are a lot of tips that I have for you there. But generally, this is a choice, okay? You do get to choose whether you are going to spend time ruminating over something that there's no solution for, you're going to go down the rabbit hole, and you essentially just need to move forward with, or you're going to spend the time doing that because, again, your compulsions make your OCD worse. So ruminating is a really important one that you want to really get to as close to zero as possible with. Ruminating is a really important one that you want to decrease as much as possible. We all think, we all analyze things. So this isn't one that you're going to be able to get to zero. Okay. Ruminating is always going to be one that you're going to want to try to bring down as much as possible. But we think we're human beings, right? It's the way the brain works. But we want you to try to stay in the present moment, continue on forward with the relationship, continue to get to know the person, enjoy the time with them, laugh. And as you do this, you're going to start to get to know that person and whether they're a good fit for you naturally. You do not have to be hypervigilant. You do not have to be over-focused on the negatives. You essentially do not have to protect yourself as much as what you're doing because you can trust yourself. You can trust yourself to get to know this person. You can trust yourself to make the right decisions. But essentially what we want you to do is stop doing these compulsions that are actually making the relationship, making a potential relationship possibly not work or not be as healthy. We want to reduce these so that you can be in a healthy relationship, get to know that person without the anxiety, not making decisions based on your anxiety, because when you make decisions based on your anxiety, you're actually feeding that OCD. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, I want you to please check out the description box below. I specialize in OCD recovery. I specialize in relationship OCD as well. I have struggled with it myself, so I completely get it. And I haven't worked with anybody yet who's gone through my 9-week program that did not get better from their relationship OCD, okay? So the process works, ERP works, all of the things that I do with my coaching clients, they work. You just have to go through the process. It's very possible to get better. Please don't lose hope. And it does just take sometimes the right person working with you step by step to teach you how to navigate all of these roadblocks that come up as you're dating with relationship anxiety or with relationship OCD.